Firearm sales explode as Oregon awaits judge's decision on gun control law. Gun enthusiasts caught in limbo as judge mulls whether to delay permit to purchase law before the December 8th start date. So we got a law that got passed in Oregon. Oregon is truly two wildly different areas. You've got the urban settings of like Portland and Eugene, where you got some of the big city urban population. And then you've got the rest of Oregon. And the rest of Oregon is, I don't want to say Wild West, but it's spread out and it is rural and it is not Portland. Let's go with that. So you've got this wild dichotomy going on in the state of Oregon. I had somebody ask me the other day, and it's a question that comes up fairly often for some of these states, like Washington State, that basically the rural areas, they want to secede from the Union, right? So like Eastern Oregon and Southern Oregon, they want nothing to do with the nonsense of Portland because that's not what they're all about. And yet they've got city, leadership and governor that dictates, well, we're all going to act like Portland and you're all going to love it because that's where the population centers are. And, you've got basically two different states within one. So people ask me all the time, what about that whole thing where they're going to create two different areas of Washington, two different areas of Oregon, and they're just going to go down that road? Well, I think it's wishful thinking. I think the states are going to stay the same, but you're going to have these struggles over issues like this because gun control in Eastern Oregon is going to look wildly different. Gun control in Eastern Oregon is a steady finger, right? Gun control in Portland is going to be taking away the ability for lawful citizens to own guns. So firearm enthusiasts in Oregon are flocking to gun stores as they wait to find out whether a federal judge will delay the start of a strict permit to purchase law before Thursday's deadline. The parking lot has been a disaster. Northwest Armory owner Karl Durkheimer told Fox News, the side streets around our place have been a disaster. That's good for business, but it also is an indication of a run-up in demand, which every time we have one of these gun laws, no matter where it is. Remember back when Obama was talking about, let's outlaw every gun out there ever? I can't even remember what that deal was. I was knee-deep in a great recession, trying to make, payments to my ex-wife and hold a couple of businesses together in a massive downturn of a real estate market. And I wasn't really paying attention, but I do remember that being the case. And there was always a run on ammunition or a run on guns. And now Obama got elected. He's going to take away all of our guns. That didn't happen, but that was a storyline. Measure 114 passed with 50.65% of the vote last month. It bans ammunition magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds and mandates the creation of a permit to purchase system that includes fingerprinting and hands-on firearm training from an instructor who has been certified by law enforcement. The permit can cost up to $65 under the measure and lasts for 5 years with a new background check required for each gun purchase. I don't have a problem with firearm training. People want to get that. They want to go out and do that. I encourage that. I think that's great. Learn how to handle a gun? You bet. Absolutely. Especially if you've got a handgun. But to restrict access to firearms based on this, that's a slippery slope that I'm kind of not really willing to deal with. And my thought is you've got laws like this, Measure 114 are passed so that the optics of gun control look a little bit better. And to me, where you need to control guns are in the hands of criminals who are shooting each other willy-nilly and shooting innocent people. So my thought is always, you know what? Let's really ratchet up the gun laws that apply to handling a stolen firearm or an unauthorized firearm. Let's do that. Get some of those actors out of the theater and into the prisons. You think that might cut down a little gun violence? I think so. Because the vast majority of gun activity that we hear about, it is not with an assault gun that has a magazine greater than 10 rounds. That the percentage of the gun violence that's out there that falls into that category is so limited that, I mean, you're literally coming up with Measure 114, well, ban all the magazines in excess of 10 rounds. What is that really going to accomplish? What's that really going to accomplish? Nothing. Nothing. It just doesn't. You got a bunch of people who don't know guns. Have you seen that one? It was a congressional hearing. I think it was a Senate hearing. And the one senator is like, you got this bump stock and it does this certain thing. And the other senator is going, you don't know what you're talking about. And literally the senator was like, well, he was trying to convince everybody that this is, you got an extension of the bump stock. Therefore you've got, an automatic rifle now, or an automatic pistol, whatever the case may have been. And the senator that actually, I can't remember who it was, the senator that actually knew guns was like, yeah, you are talking gibberish. You are talking nonsense. So this whole 10 rounds and greater magazine, limiting that, you're still going to be able to get one. You're just not going to be able to get a new one, right? In used market, it's still going to be available. It's just you can't sell them new in a gun store, magazines greater than 10. What's that going to do? And then this whole fingerprinting and hands-on firearm training from an instructor who's been certified by law enforcement. Okay, this is the state of Oregon. Law enforcement is down in Oregon massively. So they already don't have the resources to keep their citizens safe. And yet you've got knuckleheads coming up with this nonsense. How in the world are you going to get law enforcement to put this all in place in time for this to be a system, and then have people be able to, all right, here's your deal. Here's what you got to do. Here's the hoops you got to go jump through to get guns. And that's why I think people are worried. They're freaked out. Okay, I might not be able to get a gun. I need to get an extra 4 or 5. So they're running out and they're clogging parking lots because it's what they're doing. So a judge heard more than 2 hours of arguments Friday relating to the first lawsuit filed against the measure by the Oregon Firearms Federation, Sherman County Sheriff Brad Lohrey, and a gun store owner. The suit alleges that both the magazine capacity limit and permit to purchase requirement violate the Second Amendment. I think it does. And yet we're seeing just these tri-4s, right? Just throw out the tri-4 and maybe it'll stick, maybe it won't. I think the best example of the most current tri-4 is President Biden basically forgiving a bunch of student debt. All right, this is what we're doing. And then basically the lawsuits and the legal implications won't be known until after the election. So, he was able to ride that ability to say, yeah, well, I'm going to eliminate your student debt. Why wouldn't you vote for me? When in reality, his ability to do that probably wasn't constitutional, probably wasn't legal. So you've got this stuff going on where you're like, okay, we're throwing that out there. Is that even legal? Then we got to jump through all the court hearings and all this craziness. But in the case of the Biden thing, yeah, it's already had its impact. He got elected. So, yeah. The measure's sponsors hope it will reduce violent crime and accidental deaths and suicides. How does any of this reduce violent crime, accidental deaths, and suicides? Gun suicide by gun is a big deal, all right? But it's because it's one of the more effective ways of taking yourself out, and it's pretty easy to do. So, yeah. These laws, I mean, if you're in a hurry to take yourself out, you're probably not going to go get a permit. You're going to figure something else out, though, aren't you? So you're just trading one for the other. And so then to have the citizens, the honest, legal citizens, have to jump through other additional hoops, is that constitutional? Well, we're going to find out, right? Senior Assistant Attorney General Brian Simmons Marshall argued in court documents that delaying the bill's start would likely result in unnecessary deaths and hinder Oregon's efforts to reduce the risk of a massacre within its borders. This is nonsense. You're talking hypothetical, and you don't have a lot of data to stand on in that statement. You're talking gibberish. You don't like guns, you're talking gibberish. Immergut expects to make a decision early this week on whether the law should be delayed, according to the Oregon reporter Maxine Bernstein. There is much confusion over what will happen when the law takes effect, December 8th. That's just in a handful of days from now. Gun store owners and local police have said the permit system will not be ready in time. But Oregon State Police tried to assuage those fears Friday afternoon in a press release that stated there would be a manual paper process until new technical systems can be designed and implemented. That's even if this goes through, right? If there is not an injunction before the morning of the 8th, that will mean there will be no gun sales on the 8th to Oregonians, Durkheimer said prior to OSP's release. Have this stuff come up fairly often, don't we? Yeah, we do. Always seems to work its way out, but you're literally taking away the ability for honest citizens who aren't doing anything wrong to utilize their constitutional right to go get a gun. And that, to me, I'm a hard no-go on that. He expected it could take a full year for sales to resume because OSP, Oregon State Patrol, initially predicted the permit-to-purchase system wouldn't begin until around January 2024, a full year from now. And instead, we're going to go to it now. We don't have a system in place. We'll just see how it goes. Oregon has not yet even provided the necessary funding for, let alone set up the systems required to administer its new and onerous permitting scheme. That's funny, calling it a scheme. As of right now, there is no firearm training course that has been certified by the state, which means that no one can lawfully obtain a permit to purchase. They need to put this on hold until they figure out what the deal is, right? And I think that's what the court system will do. I'd be wildly surprised if the court system didn't do something like that. Durkheimer believes that the law is unconstitutional and will only impact law-abiding gun owners and not violent criminals. 100% agreed. Because law-abiding citizens, those are the ones that can go through the permitting process and actually get a gun. Criminals, especially felons, who tend to be responsible for a vast majority of gun violence, they're not going through the permitting process. So you're literally taking guns out of the hands of people who should have them and allowing the criminals to just kind of run around willy-nilly because they're using stolen guns to begin with, right? I mean, they don't have the ability to get a hold of a legal gun because of often their criminal background, nor do they want to be associated with the gun. Yeah, I'll permit up that gun. I mean, I'm just going to, commit a handful of robberies. What could go wrong? They're stupid, but they're not that stupid, the criminals. Controlling the tool is not going to change the human behavior of an evil person or a mentally deranged person. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So, get to the underlying deal, which is the criminals, crazy people. Those are the ones that, you need to watch out for, not the law-abiding citizens who are trying to protect themselves from these other impacts. Again, I go back to, and I've talked about this a ton, give them a heavy jail sentence, give them a heavy prison sentence for utilizing a stolen gun. If that's the only charge that sticks, so be it. Give them 20 years. Get them off the streets. Take them off the streets. But we're not willing to do that, are we? No, because the optics aren't good on how that goes down. And so as a result, you got laws like these and this is going to work for everybody. And the more that you ratchet down, access to guns, are the shootings going to stop? No. Are the shootings even going to be minimized? No, they're not, because those aren't the folks that are, responsible for these massive increase in gun violence. So currently there are more than 30,000 pending background checks in Oregon. Anyone whose background check is not cleared by December 8th will have to wait to obtain a permit, according to Oregon State Patrol. No matter what Immergut decides, Durkheimer said his stores will be closed December 8th. We've been working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for a month, he said. We're going to be closed for a couple of days to take a break and catch up. And hopefully they'll be open on the 10th or the 11th, because that means the judge recognized, all right, this is unconstitutional. No go. Here we go. I find it both shocking and amusing when folks are like, you need to control the guns. Nah, you need to control the people utilizing the guns. And we know who those are oftentimes, right? We know who's committing a lot of this violence, but we're not willing to do anything about it until said time that we're willing to go after these folks, maybe create some laws where you make it a real hardcore action to, whatever you've done. I don't think much is going to change. I don't think much is going to change. Certainly nothing is going to change other than a bunch of folks who are like, don't need more than 10 magazine capacity. They're going to virtue signal, well, we've really, really outdone ourselves here. And, we stopped that one, mass shooting. Yeah. What? Yeah. Makes no sense at all. It's what we're doing. It's what Oregon's doing right now. I'll keep you posted on this. And this is a story that can go one of two ways, right? All right. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.